Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here with you today to make a wreath. This is the Wood Round or Wreath Wednesday, the WWW. It is hosted by Aurea with DIY with Aurea and Loli from Loli D's Creation. Their guest host this month is Clary from Clary's Creations Part 2. Now, this is all about Christmas right now for me. I love creating for Christmas. Let me show you what I came up with. So, I have had this wreath in my stash for some time. I made it years ago and it had some dried roses on there. The roses actually just fell apart. I think this was one of the first time I had ever dried roses and I didn't use silicone or anything. And I believe this was the first set of roses that Joe actually bought me when we met. And of course, I had to dry them and I thought I would put them on a wreath. Well, we've been, married now 8 years and together for 9. So the dried roses were 9 years old and they just didn't like being on the wreath and being moved. So user error. I had to use my heat gun to really heat up that area to get those rose stems off. Once it was all cleared off, I seen that this twine was just standing out like a sore thumb because, when you think about what you were creating 8, 9 years ago, are you creating the same type or have you gotten better? Hopefully you've gotten better. So this twine just stood out like a sore thumb. So I just came in with my antique wax. I thought it would be easier to do with paper towel at first, and it was not. So I'm using a little piece of some plastic here to put my antique wax on and a stiff brush. And I'm just going over any of those light areas, which is basically all the twine. When I create the willow wreaths now, I use a willow branch to help wrap it. Now I do use wire. I use wire in this one as well to help hold its shape until it's fully dry. You also want to put them in the oven. If you'd like a video on how I create my willow wreaths, leave me a comment below and I will create a video because I have branches ready to start a new willow wreath. This one is actually 16 inches wide, so it is a good size. It is a good size wreath. It's not fitting quite in my camera frame here. Once that is all done and buffed, I went ahead and started getting things ready that I wanted to actually put on my wreath. Now, the gingerbread I created earlier in October of 2025. I will leave that link here and also in the description box. These little candies I also created earlier in October of 2025, and I will leave that link here as well as in the description box. So I had to come in with some paint because I used 2 different resins on these. Some of them are the resin Crete, which is like a plaster, and the other is the amazing resin, which is like a plastic. So I had to come in with some paint to give them all a base coat because they actually cover differently on both of these types of resin. The resin Crete will absorb and actually it will show you a stronger color than the amazing resin will. So I'm coming in with my folk art. This is called I think it's sheep's wool. And I just laid this down because I'm going with a primitive look for my wreath. This is folk art in moss, and then of course my Waverly and pink cloud. So I'm going to come up with the moss first, and all those little candies, those little wrapped candies right there, I'm going to cover in the moss. Because I put down my base coat first, I can just come in and lay a top coat over this. And I'm just doing one, and I'm coming in gently because I want the texture of these candies to show. And I want to hit the top textures with the green so that sheep's wool will show through on the bottom, and it will give the appearance of the wrapper on the candy because it's a lighter color. So I did that with all of my little wrapped candies there with that moss green. Now I'm going to come in with my pink sky, and we are going to do the peppermints and the candy canes on those. So once again, I'm going to just use a light brush, and I'm going to just brush over the top of that, and I'm going to use my fan brush, and I'm just going to dip it in there, and I'm going to brush it off just lightly and run across the top of that. You'll be able to see the difference in the texture here. This one that I'm doing is with the amazing resin, the plastic type, and this one here is with the resin crete, the one that is more like a plaster. And it has so much more detail. They are more fragile than the amazing resin because they are more of a plaster type, so they will break. Whereas the other ones, you're going to need some force. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I'm just using what I had created in my stash for other items, and I wanted to just use up what I had there. So brushing across the top of these gives that color on the top of the detail, leaving the under part of those swirls, those peppermint swirls, to be that sheep's wool. So the candy cane, I'm doing the same thing, just a light brush, dragging that across the top, and then I'm going to do a full coat on the back of these. But when you drag it across the top, you're going to just hit that the molds actually detail. My goodness, the molds detail. So once those are all done, they need to sit and dry. You want a fully dried piece there before you go on to your next step. So the next step is, for me, is the clear wax. These are totally dry. I'm coming in with clear wax, and I'm going to just add a nice layer of clear wax over all of my candy pieces here. This is going to seal in my chalk paint. Once those are dry, well, here I'm just kind of blotting to make sure that there's nothing loose on there, in case I put it on a little heavy, and I don't want it to activate and smear anything. So I just wanted to go ahead and just blot it. Once those are dry, come on in with a clean towel, and you are going to buff them. So I'm just going to hit them a little bit with my heat gun here, and then I'm going to come in with my clean towel, and I'm actually going to buff these out, and then they are sealed and ready to go. So I'm just going to continue on and make some more embellishments to go on this wreath. I wanted to add a tag, and I wanted it to be a corrugated cardboard tag. So I went ahead and measured out here some cardboard and came in and gave it a good trim to make sure that they were even. And I'm cutting 2 of the same size out. Once I've got them lined up, I'm just using my X-Acto knife and trimming them off. Now I'm going to spritz them down with some water and kind of give it a good rub in there, and then let them sit for a few minutes while that water actually helps to separate that glue. So when that is all done, I'm going to come back in and pull these back. Now I let these sit and dry a little too long, so I had a little bit of struggle, but it wasn't too bad. All I had to do was grab a hold of those little extra pieces and pull them off. I did spritz it with some more water, and just to loosen up those little fragment pieces there. And then I just scraped them off. It wasn't difficult. I think I made it harder than it needed to be because all I had to do was kind of just let that water sit on there a little bit. And then I actually came in with my putty knife, and it just lifted that stuff right on up. How easy was that? But I got sidetracked. I think I was making bread. So I let it set just a little too long. So I hit it with my hair dryer because I wanted this to be dry, um, to go on to my next step. It doesn't take long to dry it up. You want to make sure that the integrity of the cardboard is still good. that's why you don't want to use too much water. I use a spritzer, and it's just a little bit of a mister, and so it's not bad at all. I'm going to come in here, and now I can follow along those corrugated pieces, and I know that I've got a straight line there, and they're going to match up evenly. I can just lay it on up there and see which one is right on that edge, and this trim it right on up, and I have those two pieces matching exactly. So I came in and I removed the backside only because it had sat so long and re-dried. The integrity of the glue on the backside wasn't in good shape. So I just removed both sides, totally dried these. I wasn't worried about any extras peeling off there because I'm going to glue my two pieces together to create a thicker, more stable tag. But I thought the corrugated cardboard would be perfect for this since I'm going for that. So once they're ready and dry, I'm going to come in and I'm actually going to use my Tite Bond wood glue. Since this is cardboard, this is going to really hold these together nicely, and it's going to give me some more a firm support, and it'll be a little stiffer for me. I don't have to worry about the integrity of the cardboard. I'm just going to glue these two pieces together and push them down, and then I'm going to trim it up to make a tag. Once those are dry, I'm going to come in and I'm going to just measure in on the top and on the sides. So I am going to come in, I believe I came in like a 1/2 inch on each side and marked it. And then I went ahead and down from the top, I went down 1 inch and marked it. Once I get those markings done, I'm going to start to, I'm just going to trim off these edges. Start at one point to the other point and trim, one point to the other point and trim. And there you have a perfect tag shape. You just want to make sure your measurements are right on both sides there. So I went ahead and went into Word and printed out Christmas Lane and a little gingerbread man there. And I printed it on my mulberry paper so that it would have. So I went ahead and got my antique wax and brought in that little piece of plastic sheeting there. I'm going to go ahead and use a paintbrush and come in and just do a little around the edges here on my wording. That's just going to just rough it up a little bit for me and make it look a little dingy. The dingy queen for the primitive DIY. You don't want to overdo it. I'm just going to use my fingers, spread it around a little bit, and making sure I go around all of those edges on this little piece of wording. Once I have the Christmas lane done, I'm going to come back in and just hit that tag that I have. It is nice and dry now, and I'm just going to add that antiquing wax all over to make it look like it's been around for a little while. I want it to match those little gingies that I made as best as I could and just make it look like it's been there for a bit. And then I just came in and poked a hole. I didn't want a nice clean hole. I just poked it with my little pokey tool. I'm going to come in now with my matte Mod Podge, and I am going to give this a good thick coat. So this is going to be coated on the front. Ew, you see that? Oh, Mod Podge boogers. I'm so sorry. That's so nasty. Anyway, oh, okay. We're going to get him a nice coat on both sides of our tag, and we are going to just let it sit for a few minutes. Okay, so the one side is done and dry, and then I loaded this side for my little Christmas lane. And I'm just going to use my finger to pull some more of that glue, that Mod Podge glue, up and onto the Christmas lane paper there. And I'm just going to use my fingers to help push it into the grooves of that corrugated cardboard. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with my heat gun real fast here because it is on there real thick. I want it to be as sealed as possible. I should have just came in and did multiple layers, but you know me. I'm just in a hurry, I'm in a hurry to go nowhere. So I had to get it up off the paper towel because it was gluing to my paper towel. So let's get it onto this board, continue blowing this and getting it all dry. Alrighty, so I'm going to just trim off that edge there, and we are going to come in with some jute twine now. And I'm just going to pull off a section of it because this is just going to be to tie it onto the wreath itself. I'm going to just take my little pokey tool, poke it right on through the front, and then grab both pieces of that twine and pull it through. I wanted it to be a little thicker for this particular tag. The time has come to start putting this little baby together. So I set my little gingies out onto the wreath to see exactly where I wanted them to stand. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue and press it on in there. You've seen how well the hot glue held those dried florals in place. The only problem is the florals fell apart. I don't think I'm going to have that problem with my gingies. So we're just going to press them right on down onto this wreath where I want them to stand, and it will hold them perfect. So I'm going to stagger. I have the little boy Gingy, and then I'm going to have the little girl lower on the opposite side. And I'm going to squeeze her a little bit so that I have more stuffing to each side of where I'm going to push her onto that wreath. So once she is on there with her body, I'm going to go ahead and finish tapping down her arms and her head. And I'm trying to figure out what's going to be the best way for you to see this because it does not fit in frame. So let's just keep moving on. I pulled out some greenery that I had gotten off of Temu some time ago, and I'm just going to poke little sprigs of this greenery behind each of my gingerbreads and into that willow wreath, which is perfect because there's plenty of air in there that these little pieces can come on up and I can pull through the other side. Now you can't see here, but I'm going to just twist those wires together and then poke it right back in to my wreath. That was easy. Let's turn them on back, and I think that looks good. Let's add some to our girl gingerbread on the other side, doing the same thing. Stick it into the willow wreath and make sure that it is secured on the back. All right, this is coming together nicely. Let's go ahead and get our candies set up and ready to go. I'm going to add the tag first. So I'm just going to pull that tag in between my little hanging twine and give it a nice double knot. And then I will actually add a little glue to that knot so I know it's not going to come undone. I want to make sure that knot part is towards the back of my wreath so that you can see this tag popping right on up there. It's still not completely dry. You can see that Mod Podge still white in there, but it does dry. It does dry, I promise. So I'm going to go ahead and just add some hot glue to the back where I want that tag to land. And that way it is not going to move and we can just have our full wreath all the way around. It kind of balances out the greenery that is on the top of our boy Gingy. I'm going to go ahead and take some of this white. I think this is like a seedling. I've had it for years. It was on the original, so I really don't remember what it was called, but I got it at Dollar Tree eons ago. So I'm just going to trim off those little pieces and I'm just stuffing right in the back, close up to that greenery behind our little gingies. Stick it on in there so we have some of that white popping out there. And it's not stark white. It actually has a tinge of yellow to it where it's a creamy yellow. And so it's the perfect color for what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to start putting some more embellishments together using some cinnamon sticks and the candies that we painted up earlier. So I'm going to take 2 cinnamon sticks and some twine, and I'm going to tie a knot around these 2 cinnamon sticks to hold them together. I want to make sure that they're held together on the, make sure if you have them like long sides together and you tie it tight, it's going to be loose. So just make sure they're tight together and butted up against each other. I added a little bit of hot glue on that knot so that I can come right on in and know that they're going to be fine and held together. And I'm going to leave the knot in the back, and on the front, I'm going to lay some glue down and add a piece of candy to that. So here we're having just our candy cane, and I'm debating on where I want to put it. So I'm just going to leave it right now. I'm going to go ahead and put some more together. A little easier to do without the wreath in the way. Imagine that. Okay. So let's go ahead and just tie up our cinnamon sticks here. Super easy. Make sure it's nice and taut. And then I'm going to come in, hot glue that twine together, and then flip it over to the front side and add a piece of candy. So I'm going to add a peppermint to this one, and we've got that one ready to go now. I think that those are turning out adorable. So the last piece, I'm going to go ahead and make a bigger piece, kind of like a swag. So I'm going to go ahead and tie my pieces together here like I did the other two, glue it down, but then I'm going to come in with those little white pieces that I had used on the above the gingies, whatever was left on those. I am going to come in and I'm going to tie those two together and get some things done here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting things done. So I'm wrapping that twine all around where those two pieces are going to be joined together. I want these to not go anywhere. And then I'm going to go ahead and give a knot right there and use some hot glue to secure my knot, just like I was doing earlier. So now I'm going to add that broken piece of candy to the center, and I'm gluing it on where I laid that twine down. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and get that on there and add it to the edge so it looks like it's just being bent around that twine centerpiece there. I'm going to just add some other candies and we'll be done with this swag. I decided to add the candy cane to the top of it. I didn't like it. I ended up pulling it off later, and you'll see towards the end here. I was just playing. It's like, okay, I don't like the way that looks. So let's just bring in the wreath and add this swag to the top of the wreath and add our candies on here. So the first one I'm tying towards the bottom. I'm trying to see if I can give you a good view, and it's just not working. This wreath is too big. So let me just slide it up here for you. All I'm going to do is, because this is already done, all I need to do is add a little bit of hot glue to the back, and then I'm going to lay it on the wreath where I want it to be, flip that wreath over, and then we're going to just secure it in place with that twine that we tied the cinnamon sticks together with. Nice tight knot. I'm going to come in with the hot glue and then add another knot just right on top of that. And that's going to hold this in place. It's not going to go anywhere. Trim off your extra twine and do it to the next piece of candy. Let's see what we have next. Let's add one under the girl. Let's add the green one. I think that'll be good because she's got that peppermint and the red candy. So let's add it right underneath her. Once again, the glue, flip it over and just attach it with a nice tight knot using your hot glue in between the layers of knots. That's going to secure this into place, and then come right on in and trim off your extra twine. All right, that little swag piece, we're going to add that to the top right between where it's going to hang. So I wanted it off to the side just a little bit because we've got one that's a little longer, one that's a little shorter on those white pieces. And I'm going to pull it around to the back and secure it just like I did the cinnamon stick candies. Little hot glue in between those knots. I went ahead and added the last cinnamon stick and candy cane to the bottom of that swag. and secured it in place to the back of my wreath. This is where I'm looking and just tacking that other peppermint down to the cinnamon sticks and adding another piece of candy to the tag there just to lay it on there, just to balance things out a little bit. And I was looking at this and I swear I took public speaking in college, so I shouldn't be saying and so much. However, there we go. We're just going to add this last piece there, and let's take a look at our finished project.
Well, there you have it, my friends. Here is my wreath on my front door. We have a storm door, so it can go in between here. I'm not worried about my little gingers getting messed up or a bird building a nest in there. But I was able to upcycle the wreath that I had previously made from the willow branches. If you all want to see how I do that, please just leave me a comment below and I will put together a video about how I put together my willow wreaths from our willow tree in the backyard. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really love the way this turned out, being able to use those gingies. Oh, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you've not subscribed, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. If you'd like to know when my next video goes live, hit that bell notification and YouTube should notify you. As always, guys, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.